Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I am so glad you're here. I'm really excited about this one. I haven't done a medical related video in a while. I do have actually a whole series planned, but I am excited about this one because we're taking a look at an excellent trauma pack, a trauma kit that's pre-built, which has kind of to this point been against the recommendations I typically make to friends and family when they ask. I typically recommend building your own kit. Having said that, I haven't done a ton of research on pre-built kits, but MedTac Medical Gear sent this for review. It's called the Save a Life Kit, and I've been following MedTac on Instagram for a long time, and they are associated with Valtac Tactical Gear, but they are a separate company, a separate entity. So, little background real quick, then we'll break into this thing, show you all that comes with it, the different carrying options, the different bags and packs that come with it that you can opt for. But a little background on MedTac. So it was started, I guess kind of the idea came from a guy named Dr. Tomo. He's an emergency department physician. He is a doctor. And he tells a story. If you go to the MedTac YouTube channel, there's only a couple videos, but he tells a story. You know, he comes from a family of medical practitioners. His sister's a doctor, and Dr. Tomo himself is a very active dude, very active lifestyle. And he kind of had an epiphany one day when he was out with his family, and kind of the thought that went through his mind was, you know, I'm a doctor, but I don't really have anything with me should something bad happen. I don't necessarily have the tools that I would need to translate my skills to help somebody in need. And so he purpose built this kit to his specifications. Dr. Tomo did. And he did that in partnership with somebody else, and they partnered with Valtac to kind of bring this to market. So this is available from Valtac Tactical Gear's website, and it's a really good kit. And I was a little skeptical, as I typically am with anything pre-built, but I'll say this right off the bat. After having this for a couple days and having had a chance to go through the contents and do a little research, I actually, last night, the night before I'm filming this video, I purchased one of these for myself. And I'll also say that there's no quid pro quo here. I don't get any sort of discount from Valtac Tactical Gear's website. I pay full retail. And so I'm putting my money where my mouth is, I guess is what I'm saying. And I do recommend this kit as somebody who has worked as a paramedic, who is currently licensed as a paramedic. So I want to share with you what is in the kit. And I'll go through each item and kind of briefly discuss what it is, what it's used for. And we will talk value. And I'll tell you right off the bat, the cost for just the kit as it sits here is $140. And if you're new to Valtac, like a new customer, and you create an account, you automatically get a $10 credit. So this would become $130, and that would be shipped to your door because I think it's over $75 is free shipping. So $140 if you're a new customer, $130. If you want to upgrade and get a pack to put this stuff in, and there's two different options, it's an additional $15. And I'll show you the two different packs that they offer. They're both great. I'll tell you which one I chose when I bought mine. But that's the cost. $140 or $155 if you get a bag. And again, if you're new to Valtac, use that $10 credit. That would make it $130 just the kit, or $145 with the bag. So before I open it, I want to point out one thing real quick, and that is this right here, North American Rescue. And we'll talk about that as we get into it. So I'm just going to kind of dump out the bag. It has been opened. The way these ship is a sealed plastic bag. It's not vacuum sealed, but it is sealed, and you just tear it open. My recommendation, and I think the intent, is that you would not want to store this kit in the bag in which it ships. The reason for that is you want to make sure, A, that you're familiar with all the gear that's contained within it, and that you have it organized in such a way that makes sense for you so that you can deploy these things rapidly in the event of an emergency. So let's just kind of dump everything out. I'll try to kind of somewhat organize things on the table here so you can really see what we're looking at, and then we'll talk about it. And again, I will talk value because I think the cost, when you look at a pre-built medical kit, the cost can often cause a little bit of sticker shock, which is understandable, especially if you're somebody who's not purchased a lot of these products in the past, because they can be expensive, and I'll definitely touch on that. And again, I wouldn't have spent my own money, $155, because I'd already used my MedTac credit on a previous purchase, so I would not have spent $155 on this kit if I did not think it was a good value. So let's make sure everything's basically in frame here and get into it. So I'm just going to set that right there. So this is the contents of the Save a Life kit. And the idea here is to have a kit that you can just literally take out of the bag and put into some vessel, whether it's a bag or a pack that you already own, or one of the ones that you can upgrade and get from MedTac, which is what I opted to do. And again, I'll show you those two options here in a moment. When it comes to a trauma kit, whether it's pre-built or one that you're building yourself, there's a couple really important things to keep in mind. The first is the quality of the components that are contained within. Now, everything in this kit is very, very high quality, name brand, kind of no corners were cut, which is, in my opinion, absolutely fundamentally critical for a trauma kit. We all love our budget pocket knives and our budget flashlights. You guys know I do. This is not an area where you want to go for the budget option. And some of these things are just inherently pricey. And so, again, we'll talk a little more about cost and value as we go through this. The other thing I want to make very clear before we get into this is that everything you see here, with the exception of one item, can be learned, practiced, and implemented by almost anybody. And when I say that, I mean like middle school aged kids and older can learn these skills. They do take some training, some level of understanding, but they are considered basic skills. These are not considered advanced life support skills. You don't need to be a paramedic or a physician to execute the skills necessary to use all of this great gear. The other thing to note is that none of the gear here, although it can save a life, it can truly save a life. The name of the game when you're talking about severe trauma is to get them to the next level of appropriate care. So in most cases, that's going to be calling 911, an ambulance, and a hospital, and then most likely a trauma surgeon. So this is not the definitive care, but this stuff can buy people enough time and prevent things from progressing in such a way that it will literally save their life. And you'll also notice, if you've watched my previous video on my personal individual trauma kit that I built, there is a lot of similar and or identical items in this kit that I carry in my personal kit. There's nothing on the table that I do not personally recommend and or personally carry. So let's start with, we'll just pick one and start there. So you're going to get some quick clot combat gauze. Now this is a hemostatic gauze. It is gauze that's Z-folded, so it's kind of folded over itself, almost like Kleenex would be, and it's impregnated with a hemostatic agent to help encourage the coagulation of blood. So this is invaluable for things like wound packing, or even just placing on top, directly on top of a wound. So if you have a severe bleed, like an arterial bleed, in an area where you cannot apply a tourniquet, such as your groin, near the armpit, your neck. That's what we would call a junctional hemorrhage. And when that happens, you cannot apply a tourniquet. Tourniquets are for extremities. So you would want to pack that wound, and that's exactly what this is for. And there's another use for this that I'll talk about here in a second. And again, this is very high quality, name brand stuff. And this, if you were to buy just this on Amazon, would cost you about 45 bucks. Okay? Very, very high quality component. Next, we've got a pair of trauma shears. And this may seem benign and simple, but these are actually really high quality. These are North American Rescue brand trauma shears. I used to keep a pair of these on my ambulance just for cutting pennies in half. Whenever we would have kids come in the ambulance and give them tours, they would get a kick out of that. When you have a traumatic injury, in order to properly treat it with something like a chest seal, for example, which we'll get to, you have to be able to visualize that injury, right? So if somebody takes a gunshot wound, for example, to the chest through their t-shirt, their shirt needs to come off. So trauma shears just have to be in any trauma kit, in my opinion, and in Dr. Toma's opinion. So you get a good quality pair of trauma shears. You also get a twin pack of vented chest seals. These are hyphen vents, the same brand that I carry. This is the compact variety, so it saves a little space, but they're equally as effective, and there's a lot of evidence-based research on the effectiveness of a vented chest seal. So you would use this in a scenario in which there's been a penetrating trauma to the chest. And to put it, I guess, relatively simply, when a foreign object penetrates through the chest into the thoracic cavity, right? So that's going to be everything above your diaphragm, everything contained within your rib cage, including your lungs. If something penetrates into that space, it can cause what's called a sucking chest wound. And you'll know it because you'll see bubbling and you'll actually hear kind of that sucking as air is being brought into the thoracic cavity through that hole, right? Let's just say it's a gunshot. And it doesn't take a very large hole to create a sucking chest wound. Like the size of a dime or even smaller can create a sucking chest wound. And so what happens is that air comes in and it starts to compress what is inside the thoracic cavity, which in most cases is going to be your lungs. And what that can lead to is what's called a tension pneumothorax. It's a life-threatening event where effectively your lung is collapsed and all of your major vessels are kind of pushed to one side. You're not getting blood flow returning to your heart. So by applying a chest seal onto a penetrating chest wound, you can literally prevent the you can prevent a tension pneumothorax from actually occurring. So chest seals, again, for me, are a non-negotiable in any trauma kit. And this is a twin pack. Typically, they are shipped this way. Nowadays, you should have two. And it actually says entry/exit wound. So for gunshots, you'd want to seal, obviously, both sides. So a very high-quality, name-brand chest seal in the hyphen vent. Next, a simple pair of nitrile gloves in a light color that could be that you could write on if you needed to. Here is some self-adherent wrap. It's made by a company called Self Grip. Very high quality. It just adheres to itself. It doesn't have adhesive on it. It's similar to like Coban, if you're familiar with that. And this is the 4-inch variety. And that can be used to create a pressure bandage, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Here we have a SWAT T tourniquet. And this is kind of a backup tourniquet as far as I'm concerned. And it is multifunction, so we're going to come back to that. And this also happens to be the same tourniquet that I carry as my kind of backup tourniquet. Here we have a survival blanket. So I think these are pretty underrated. Space blanket, survival blanket, whatever you want to call it. It's made from Mylar. They're very large, deceptively large. It's like 84 inches by 56 inches. When you've suffered a major traumatic injury, especially something where there's been a lot of blood loss, you go into shock. And when you're in shock, and there's many different types, but the point is your body's ability to maintain its core temperature is extremely compromised. So you need to keep that person warm. So, once you've addressed the bleed, for example, with a tourniquet, and kind of addressed the major immediate life threats, you need to keep that person warm. And this is going to reflect back any natural body heat. So a survival blanket is a great tool. Here we have a cat tourniquet. This is a genuine Generation 7 cat tourniquet from North American Rescue. It comes pre-staged with the windlass, the Velcro tab that secures the windlass where you would write the tourniquet time. It comes pre-staged, and this is the best tourniquet in the world. I don't think anyone would argue with that. There's more evidence-based research on this tourniquet than any other tourniquet in the world. There are others that are good. There's some new ones that have recently been approved by the TCCC. However, nothing has proven itself more than the cat tourniquet, and no one will ever convince me that there's anything better than the cat tourniquet. It's not what I EDC, but it is what I keep in my trauma kit. I have a lot of cat tourniquets. It is the best tourniquet in the world. And again, this is what we would use to apply to an extremity, an arm, or a leg. Generally speaking, the recommendation is to put the tourniquet between 2 and 4 inches above the wound. However, if you're a layperson who doesn't have a ton of training and heat of the moment, oftentimes you'll just be told to put it high and tight. Put it up in the armpit if it's a wound to the arm, or put it up kind of near the groin if it's a wound to the leg. But again, a cat tourniquet is fantastic. And kids, and I truly mean children, are taught to use these. There's been Stop the Bleed campaigns going on recently where people are going into middle schools and teaching kids how to apply cat tourniquets. It is not an advanced skill. It is not difficult to learn. And these have saved countless lives. So you get a nice, genuine cat tourniquet. And these go for like $30-$35 just for one cat tourniquet. So they're not cheap, but they are phenomenal. So the SWAT T tourniquet, it's called a stretch, wrap, and tuck tourniquet. So by definition, by the way it's marketed, it is a tourniquet. It can be effective as a tourniquet. There is some anecdotal evidence that I've seen using, manually assessing somebody's pulse and using Doppler to confirm that this did in fact stop arterial blood flow. But it's also a multifunction tourniquet and trauma care device, is what they actually put on the package. So if you're applying a tourniquet to yourself, if you are the one that's injured, this is the tourniquet you want to use. If there's another wound that needs to be addressed with a tourniquet, this would be your backup. These are also good for applying to another person. These are pretty challenging to self-apply. I've actually trained with self-application of a SWAT T tourniquet, and it can be done, but it's very challenging and can take some time. And time is not necessarily something you're going to have a lot of. So this would be a backup tourniquet as far as I'm concerned. But what's great about these is that they are versatile. So, for example, you can create a pressure dressing with this kit. So if you were to take this combat gauze out of its package and put it onto a wound, a severe hemorrhage, you could wrap that in place. You could secure it in place with either the self-adherent tape or a SWAT T tourniquet by adding some pressure. And the combination of the hemostatic gauze being on the wound itself and the pressure being applied to that is going to create a pressure dressing and address that bleeding. You can also use these to make slings. So it is a versatile tool, and I do like them. One quick little pro tip on the SWAT T tourniquet is there's a number of perforations along the package where you can tear it open. The best way that I've found in practicing with these is to just grab it with both hands and squeeze and twist as hard as you can. Just squeeze and twist, and it'll break right in the middle. Because again, in a high stress situation where you're having to apply things like this to somebody else, adrenaline's pumping, fine motor skills can be compromised. So just grab it and twist it, and it'll pop right open. What have we not covered? So this is an ARS needle. This is a chest decompression needle. It is what we would use to perform a technique called a needle thoracostomy. And so needle thoracostomy or chest decompression is an advanced skill. It's something I learned in paramedic school and trained and practiced on cadavers and have done on live patients as well. This is not a basic skill. This is the one piece of kit in this kit that I would recommend that you either remove from the kit or leave it in there, but do not attempt to use it. Only deploy this if somebody else is there who has the level of training to use this, whether it be a paramedic, physician, something like that. Because the way these work, it's a 14 gauge, it's a large bore needle that is inserted through the chest wall into the thoracic cavity to relieve pressure. So if, for example, a chest seal wasn't doing enough to allow that air to escape, and they developed a tension pneumothorax, you would address that with a needle thoracostomy using an ARS needle. And there's very specific places where these go. You essentially insert it between two ribs, kind of through the muscle between the ribs. So imagine you're eating some baby back ribs. The meat that you eat when you're eating ribs, those are called intercostal muscles. And so this actually goes into and through the intercostal muscle between specific ribs in specific locations, and if inserted improperly, it can cause some major problems. So that's the one thing you need to be very careful of, and just kind of ignore it if you don't have that level of training. Everything else, if I pull this away, everything else here can be learned and executed by somebody who's 12 years old. And I am dead serious about that. So what I like about this kit is that it's pretty straightforward. Now, anytime you talk about a trauma kit, an individual trauma kit, a pre-built kit, whatever, if you ask 2 paramedics, 2 nurses, 2 doctors for them to build their ideal kit, you're going to get 6 different answers. And that's okay. What I think Dr. Tomo has done here is put together a pretty thoughtful collection of tools. He's kind of curated this to his specifications. And again, I bought one of these because I think the tools and products contained within are of high quality. They're appropriate for treatment of trauma that happens in a pre-hospital setting, that happens out in the world that we all live in. And they're all products that I already own and use and recommend. The one constructive piece of feedback that I would give to MedTac for the Save a Life kit is I think that they should add a Sharpie marker. And that may sound silly because a Sharpie costs like $1. They're lying around the house. I've got them. I can get a Sharpie in the kit. But I do think that anytime you're going to include a tourniquet in a trauma kit, you need to have a Sharpie marker to mark the tourniquet time. It's fine to mark the tourniquet time on the tourniquet, but I do recommend also marking it, this is my personal recommendation, also marking it on their forehead with the letters TQ and the time of application. So again, you can buy a Sharpie for $1 or take one out of your kitchen drawer. But I think it would be nice to have one included just because you are including a tourniquet. Now, could you add to this kit? Absolutely. Could you take something out? Like, for example, I don't keep this in my personal trauma kit. When I get the one that I ordered, I'll probably leave it in there. I may take it out and exchange it for something else. But that's the thing with these types of kits is that you have to start somewhere and you have to draw a line somewhere. I think this is a great starting place, but if you start adding more and more and more, again, you have to decide where you're going to draw that line. Otherwise, the next thing you know, you're going to have a backpack that weighs 30 pounds, which I actually do in my trunk, but you're going to have a kit that's just not practical the whole idea here, the entire concept, is to have a kit you can have with you at all times. That was Dr. Tomo's intent, and that's the intent with any trauma kit, such as this, designed to treat massive bleeding, penetrating chest wounds, things like that. So you really do need to draw a line. So let me show you the bags, because I think this will put it in perspective. So when you buy the kit, you'll have the option to pick one of two bags, if you would like to add to your order. One of them is the Maxpedition First Response Pouch. And this is a very, very high quality bag. It's from their Advanced Gear Research line, kind of their newer stuff. And it's purpose built as a medical kit. And that's what it looks like on the inside. And this is what I chose when I ordered mine, and I got mine in gray. This comes in black, gray, and OD green, and whichever one you choose, it will come with the MedTac medical gear patch. The reason I chose this is because this product will fit in here quite nicely and leave me just a little bit of room to expand. So I could add a Sharpie, I could add an Israeli bandage, I could add some more gloves, but it's not so large that I'm going to go overboard and end up with a kit that I'm not going to actually carry with me. So that's one option, and that's the one that I chose. The other option is the MedTac sling bag. And ironically, I actually own this bag. I already owned it, and it's right here. Mine's black, but it's the same bag. The good thing about this one is it leaves a lot more room for expansion. So if you want to make a more comprehensive kit and build on this, I would opt for this bag. It is a sling pack. The sling is tucked, kind of stowed away currently, but you pop this and you've got a shoulder strap that you attach to one side or the other, whether you're kind of righty or lefty, and you've got a sling pack, and this is going to have much more space for you to add more gear. So I could fit this bag inside the main compartment of this bag. So if your plan is to say, here's my starting point, I'm going to add 2 more cat tourniquets, I'm going to add another set of chest seals, I'm going to add more combat gauze, more gloves, and you want to make a more comprehensive kit, that's totally cool. This is the bag that I would recommend that you go with, unless you have one already. So that is the Save a Life kit from MedTac. Again, I can, without hesitancy, recommend this. Again, because the components themselves have been thoughtfully chosen, and they are of very high quality. And again, I can't stress this enough. You have to draw a line somewhere. There's no perfect kit, but this one's pretty damn good. It's really good. Good enough that I chose to spend $155 on one that's going to live in my wife's vehicle. And my recommendation with a kit like this, especially if you get the Maxpedition pouch, like, carry it with you, right? That's the whole point. It can stay in your vehicle. If you go in the grocery store, take it with you. If you go to the beach, take it with you. You know, if you go to a concert, take it with you. Throw it in your backpack. If you're going to work, throw it in your work bag, throw it in your EDC bag, but have it on you or very, very close by. And that's the intent. At least that's the intent when Dr. Tomo created this. So again, keep in mind, all these skills are very basic, and you can learn how to use all of this stuff, maybe with the exception of the ARS needle, very easily. And I just think it's a good kit. So I do recommend it. I'll leave a link below to the Valtac website where you can purchase the MedTac gear products, and you can see the different options. And again, sign up for an account with Valtac. Whether you purchase one of these or not, sign up for an account with Valtac and get $10. That's actually what I used when I bought this bag, this sling bag. I used my $10 credit, so this was like 15 bucks because of that credit. So definitely take advantage of that. So that is the MedTac Save a Life kit. If you have any questions about any of the components or how to use them, or where to get training, things like that, please feel free to leave those in the comments. But I can certainly recommend this. And there may be other trauma kits on the market that are pre-built that you like better, that I'm unaware of. But having had this and having researched the cost of each individual component, I can tell you that the value is there. Meaning, if you add up the individual cost of every component in this kit, you're going to spend less money if you buy this kit pre-built than if you try to find each of these individual products separately, because there's no single place where you can buy all of this product. And I know that because, for example, North American Rescue, their website, they don't sell SWAT T tourniquets. And I do generally recommend that you buy direct from the manufacturer, which is what MedTac has done. So there's your Save a Life kit. It can absolutely save a life. And I think being prepared, having a practical proficiency in basic trauma care is an invaluable skill that you can take with you anywhere. And it's yours for the rest of your life. It's a tool to put in your toolbox, the knowledge, the physical tools, and it's something I'm really passionate about. And I would not ever recommend something when it comes to medical equipment, especially trauma care, that I didn't believe in, because this is going in my wife's vehicle. And you know who spends a lot of time in my wife's vehicle? My wife and my toddler, my young son. Okay, so these are things that I trust. And again, go back and watch my video on my personal kind of hand-built trauma kit, and you're going to see Z-folded hemostatic gauze. You're going to see a hyphen chest seal. You're going to see a SWAT T, a cat tourniquet. You're going to see ARS needles, right? Trauma shears. This is stuff that I've used, have seen work, have seen save lives, and highly, highly recommend. So if you're interested, check the link below for the Valtac website. And I'll also leave a link for MedTac's Instagram page. They post some photos from time to time. And yeah, so that's it. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, that is all I got for you. And once I get mine, I will show you my kit once it arrives. And real quick, just to demonstrate, I'm going to kind of move this stuff to the side just real quick, and we'll close out the video because I know it's gone a little long. But again, I am passionate about this. So I just want to show you kind of how things could fit in this Maxpedition bag. Again, that's happens to be the one I chose. So maybe I put the chest seals back there. The trauma shears, maybe I'll tuck them on the side here. The ARS needle, maybe I'll tuck it on the other side. Let's see, combat gauze and SWAT T. I'm probably going to want pretty readily accessible. So maybe I put both of those kind of in this other flap here. Let's see, maybe I put the survival blanket in this little zippered compartment. I'll probably tuck, probably just put that in that little crease right there. Put the gloves where they're pretty close by. Maybe even just kind of set them on top of that little compartment. And then we'll figure out the cat T as I close this. I want the cat tourniquet to be kind of the most accessible item in this kit. So I'll just kind of lay it in there, and I will zip this guy up. And there is the Save a Life kit packed out into the first response pouch from Maxpedition. Just not a very obtrusive kit. It's not going to take up a ton of space. If you carry a backpack style EDC bag, if you carry a large purse, if you're a female, it'll fit in a glove box. It'll, you know, this for me is a good size, because I think once you get too big and you expand too much, it reaches a point where you will just not carry it and not keep it on you. And that then defeats the purpose, right? So you want to make it practical. So for me, I chose the Maxpedition first response pouch, and that's just a quick example of how you could pack it out. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks, MedTac, for sending this for us to check out, and I will talk to you soon.